3, 2, 1.
7 things you probably didn't know you need to know. I'm Jamie East, and this is the Smart 7. Well, good morning to you. It's Thursday the 21st of May, and happy Memo Day to everyone. Remember memos? Remember offices? And a big happy birthday to what is an amazing fantasy dinner party. Leo Sayer, Mr. T, Muchia Buena, and Noel Fielding.
7.
The coronavirus has now infected more than 5 million people worldwide, with Brazil rapidly climbing the table as the number of cases there spikes dramatically, with almost 20,000 reported yesterday. In the UK, as concerns continue over the track and trace programme, Boris, remember Boris, appeared for Prime Minister's Question Time. Sir Keir Starmer put him under pressure over charges that foreign care workers have to pay to use the NHS.
Does the Prime Minister think that it's right that care workers coming from abroad and working on our front line should have to pay a surcharge of hundreds, sometimes thousands of pounds to use the NHS themselves?
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I thought a great deal about this, and I do accept and I do understand the difficulties faced by our amazing NHS staff, and like him, I've been a personal beneficiary of people who've come from, carers who've come from abroad and frankly saved my life. So I know exactly the importance of what he says. But on the other hand, we must look at the realities that this is a great national service. It's a national institution. It needs funding.
Surely that's the government's job, no?
6.
In the midst of the coronavirus response, the Trump administration is doing everything it can to distract attention. Yesterday, Trump threatened to withhold funding from the state of Michigan, who is currently in the middle of a disastrous flood, because he's not happy about them offering postal voting in the November election. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is floundering as he tries to fight off a scandal over the firing of an Inspector General who is apparently investigating him over arms sales to Saudi Arabia.
Let's be clear. There are claims that this was for retaliation, for some investigation that the Inspector General's office here was engaged in. It's patently false. I have no sense of what investigations were taking place inside the Inspector General's office. Couldn't possibly have retaliated for all the things. I've seen the various stories that someone was walking my dog to sell arms to my dry cleaner. I mean, it's all just crazy. It's all crazy stuff.
Yeah, it sounds like the perfectly normal response of an innocent man.
5.
Don't tell Matty Hancock, who cancelled your big lavish holiday last week, but Minister Oliver Dowden, no, not a clue, who did the Downing Street briefing last night, says maybe, just maybe, we could have a holiday, but only in Britain, and we're not allowed to enjoy it too much.
I'd love to get the tourism sector up as quickly as we possibly can. We've set this very ambitious plan to try and get it up and running by the beginning of July. Clearly, we can only do it if it's safe to do so, because I think the worst thing for our tourism sector would be to start, then see the R rate rise out of control, see a second peak that overwhelms the NHS that we then have to slam on the brakes again. But believe me, if we get to the point when we can have British tourism back, apart perhaps from the Prime Minister, you won't find a bigger champion of the great British break than me.
4.
In some more positive coronavirus news, 2 new studies in monkeys shows they can develop immunity to the disease, which may well be a positive sign for a vaccine. Although scientists continue to warn it'll probably be 12 to 18 months until an effective vaccine is widely available. Here's NBC News' Dr. John Torres explaining.
You know, this is good news to a certain extent, and we've had some pretty good news about vaccines, again, to a certain extent, that seem to be working in humans, seem to be working in monkeys. But the thing you have to remember is, number one, these are very preliminary studies on very small numbers of people. With the monkey vaccine, it's fantastic because their immune system is a lot like ours, but it's not exactly like ours. So this is a step in the right direction, and it still looks like that time schedule of 12 to 18 months is probably realistic. And Allison, I think that's what we're looking at still.
3.
The Premier League continues to make progress towards resuming football. After a wide-ranging testing regime, players are now returning to training in small groups. Liverpool's Jurgen Klopp is happy that it's time to resume training, but he's not forcing anyone to do anything if they don't want to.
I said that before the session, you are here on a free will. You sign a contract and then you have to be in when I tell you. In this case, if you don't feel safe, you don't have to be here. And there's no restrictions, no punishment, nothing. So it's just, that's your own decision and we will respect that with 100%. So the boys are all here in a moment. So we will see in the first group, 10 players were here. We will see in around about half an hour, the next session will start, and then another 10 players will be in, and then another 5 in the afternoon. So we will see.
2,
Ben Stiller appeared on Jimmy Fallon to tell a story about his dad, the legendary comic actor Jerry, who died last week. As a child, he had his bike stolen by an older kid, and his dad brought him to the bike store to buy him a new one.
We were at the bike store on Amsterdam Avenue, and I saw the kid who took my bike riding on my bike. And I said, that's the kid. And he started running after the kid, and I ran after Dad, and he chased him down. The kid's riding the bike and saw that my dad was running after him. The kid went into this lower level of a walk up on 86th Street, and my dad said, all right, wait here, I'm going to go in. And he went in, 10 minutes go by, and he comes out, and he doesn't have the bike. I said, what's going on? He goes, we're going to let him keep the bike. We're going to let him keep it. He needs it.
1.
It's been a weird time for everyone, and lockdown has meant no cinemas, no theatres, and no space for the arts. So, as a moment of zen, here's Fleabag's Andrew Scott performing Derek Mann's Everything Is Going to Be All Right.
How should I not be glad to contemplate the clouds clearing beyond the dormer window? And a high tide reflected on the ceiling. There will be dying. There will be dying. But there's no need to go into that. The poems flow from the hand unbidden. And the hidden source is the watchful heart. The sun rises in spite of everything. And the far cities are beautiful and bright. I lie here in a riot of sunlight, watching the day break and the clouds flying. Everything is going to be alright.
This has been the Smart 7. Stay safe, stay distant, and please wash those hands. We are on Alexa now. You can enable the Smart 7 and add us as a flash briefing. We're back tomorrow at 7. Please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
All of television history is contained within the box of delights.
It was happening in front of us.
Incredible.
In our living rooms. It was amazing.
Guests pick their favourite television moment and tell us why they love it.
And is this the episode where Daisy's just been for the interview at the Woman's Magazine?
Flaps.
That's it, Flaps.
Yeah.
Named one of Radio Time's best podcasts of the year.
I don't understand people who don't see the joy in drawing the curtains, a mug of hot chocolate and something nice on TV. Like, what could be nicer than that?
Than having a snuggle.
Exactly.
Nostalgia in bite-sized chunks. Box of delights from Great Big Owl.